All right, for the last game today, we got the Eagles and the Seahawks. This was a game that we talked about. The Seahawks absolutely had to have. They were in danger of going from 6-3 to 6-8. They avoid that though. Win this one 20-17 over the Eagles. The Eagles are now on a slide, having lost their last three in a row. Of course, again, we did mention this earlier. Because of this loss and the Cowboys lost, the Cowboys are still number 2 in the East with only 3 games left. The Eagles have a little bit of an easier road here, but this one's got to be bad for them. I mean, you got to feel bad after the way they played in this one, and especially where they are now in the standings, having had the opportunity to leapfrog Dallas again.
Yeah, this is gonna spark some urgency. You haven't won a game in December yet, and the Cowboys, aside from getting thumped by the Bills, are looking to try to take that division. You get lucky that they lose to the Bills, but you had a moment to take this one from them. All the Eagles had to do to lock up the division was win out, and they have already missed the first step of that equation. Again, their pathway is a little more favorable than the Cowboys' pathway, but this one they get the Giants twice and the Cardinals, so it's definitely more favorable than the Cowboys. But this one is still a bit of a scary moment. The Cowboys could still try to make something happen if the Bills or if the Eagles make a mistake against another team. We'll look at this one on paper. Pretty straightforward as well. These 3 games were pretty easy. Most of the games this week through the NFL, even including the ones we did not cover, were pretty straightforward, including the Las Vegas 63-point game. It was just a mountain of points. So this one is not a mountain of points, but it is just as straightforward. Drew Lock leads the Seahawks in this one. Goes 22 33, 208 yards, throws a touchdown, no picks, stays good on the turnovers there. This includes a 92-yard game-winning drive where the Eagles get walked down by Drew Lock, and he just gets kind of everything he wants, including a 29-yard touchdown to cap that one off. Kenneth Walker III leads the game on the ground with 86 yards. Touchdown. DK Metcalf leads in the air with 78 yards, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba is second in the air with 48 yards and touchdown. That one being, of course, the 29-yarder to win the game. And Julian Love had Jalen Hurts' number last night, picked him off twice. Hurts has had a bit of an issue with some turnovers this season, and those two would be pretty costly, as Julian Love would give his team some pretty big things there. For the Eagles, it's not so positive. Jalen Hurts goes 17 for 31, 143 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. He leads the game on the ground, though, with 82 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he does still contribute pretty much all of the Eagles' points. One of these rushing touchdowns is actually also not a tush-push touchdown, and he's got a lot of flack for his amount compared to the style of them. That comes kind of naturally when you get compared to guys like Cam Newton, whose rushing touchdowns are, a little more work. And not that I want to discredit the tush push, but just to build Jalen up in this loss here. One of his touchdowns is still short, but it's still a rushing touchdown that is a little more him and less the offensive line. DeAndre Swift was behind him with 74 yards on the ground in this one. In the air, it's a pretty even showcase between AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, who get 56, 50, and 30 yards each in that order. And then the Eagles' turnovers essentially are what kills them in this game. As I said, a straightforward game, kind of a back and forth one. The Eagles go up, and then they look to be kind of comfortably up when it's 10-0. And the Seahawks, it's 10-3 by halftime. It comes out, it's 10-10 right after halftime. Eagles take the lead again, and then it's 17-13, and then there's a pick. After that pick, they had a few more things going on. Seahawks finally get it together, walk down the field, make it 2017, and they pick off Hurts again. And so these, we talked about some of the, like Dak Prescott's interception in the Bills game isn't that costly. Some of the turnovers for the Jaguars, it's kind of already over by that point. Some of the mistakes by the Jaguars, they don't loom as large. But both of these interceptions for the Eagles are in the second half of a game that was already kind of on the fence. I would say that's pretty hard to make a case that these 2 picks aren't massive for the outcome of this game. Jalen Hurts is currently tied to be leading the NFL with turnovers. He's tied with Josh Dobbs, Sam Howell, and Josh Allen. So Terrence and I have obviously given a lot of flack to Josh Allen. We don't really cover Sam Howell or Josh Dobbs. There's not a whole lot of need with those two. No disrespect to those guys. But the Eagles and Jalen Hurts have had some issues, and it's time to kind of put a spotlight on that. It's some of these interceptions are getting a little costly. Great quarterback, great passer, and great runner. He's a great player for the Eagles team. They definitely need him. But like Josh Allen, he's got to clean up some of these turnovers, or he's going to throw some games away. In my humble opinion, I believe he did throw this one away against the Seahawks last night. And the Seahawks have now gone 15 years without losing to the Eagles. Obviously, very different teams for each of those two franchises throughout that 15-year span. But somehow, some way, the Black Magic stays alive, and the Seahawks keep that streak going.
Yeah, I'll finish this out here because there's really not too much to say here. I mean, good for Drew Lock to play, a pretty good game. Didn't turn the ball over. Um, it had that long drive, obviously, at the end where he he came off the field. He was talking his stuff, so I give it to him. When these guys, like, hey, a guy like Gino, Gino was on the sideline, supporting them, everything. When these guys get the opportunity to, show that they actually still have something, when for how many years he was in Denver, I think like 3 years straight, it just wasn't good. Obviously a bad situation over there too, but like, hey, man, maybe he showed he had a little bit something left, just like Gino did. Gino, they wrote him off, but he didn't write back. So we have seen a lot of these kind of moments this year. Jake Browning. I mean, he was talking his stuff too the other day. I ain't gonna repeat what he said against the Vikings, but he was saying his stuff too. So I mean, it is kind of fun to see these moments. Obviously, they don't last, but it is nice to see guys that you think are pretty much done in the league, but lead a long drive from the 8-yard line, literally, with just literally 2 minutes left in the game and get a touchdown. I mean, you can't do nothing but give credit to them. With that being said, Eagles, Jalen Hurts specifically, you got to cut down on turnovers, like you said. I mean, there's no really other way to put it. We've been talking even early in the season. We were saying like, this isn't really the Eagles team that we, saw last year, not the team we expected. And then once they got going, really, kind of in the middle of the season there, then they started picking up more wins. Um, you know, started playing more like the team we expected. Okay, we didn't really have that narrative going anymore. The Buffalo game, that was Jalen's game, definitely for sure. I mean, 5 touchdowns in that one. But then since then, I mean, it just hasn't been the greatest performances for him. The fumbles, interceptions, they just had a segment on that, like in that Sunday night football game against the Cowboys. He just can't do it. Like, I mean, when we criticize Josh Allen when he did it, we got to criticize Jalen. And again, we don't, really cover Washington or Arizona when Josh was there. Now Minnesota, really. So obviously not talking about them, but these are quarterbacks that we expect more from. So I think that is why that they should get that criticism when they are turning the ball over so much. And now that Josh they're on the up and up, nobody's really talking about it too much anymore. But he still did have like 7, 8 games in a row he had to pick. And obviously Jalen, he's turned the ball over in the last few games as well. So we have to give credit where it's due, but we have to give criticism where it's due. And I said it last week. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the Eagles to kind of get back to where they were. Maybe it might not be to the end of the season. They'll probably. I'll be very surprised if they lose. 2 out of these last 3. At worst, I'd say they'll go 2-1. But these aren't games that you can just come in and decide that you're not going to play well. And just to leave it here, Jalen Hurts, he came out and he had after the game, the press conference, saying, I think he said the team wasn't committed the way that they should have been. That one's a little weird to me because it's like you're on a 2-game skid. You kind of got exposed. I don't want to say exposed, but you got beat up by your rival. The second time you play them, you got beat up by a team that everybody wouldn't shut up about the fact that they lost all their quarterbacks, and that's why they lost to them. You would think you would have some fire to come out and get this dub, get back on track, especially after seeing the Cowboys lose. So to hear him say that is a little concerning, a little weird. Again, I'm not saying they're cooked or anything, but they got some things they got to work out because I mean, obviously it's the turnovers, but I mean, you still team just isn't overall. It hasn't been there the last few weeks, so definitely a lot to clean up there. Not just the turnovers.